Thank you so much, Praful. Such an honor having you here.
Thank you, Gaurav. There are very few places where one thinks that they will have a meaningful dialogue, and X Monks is one of them. So here we are.
Thank you. I love reading what you post. I love your courage. I love your vulnerability and the kind hearted person that you are. And Praful, I personally believe that our childhood plays a very vital role in helping us become who we are. The family that you're born in, the initial journeys that you have traveled with your parents, with your siblings, with the fellow travelers. Just curious, how has your childhood shaped you become who you are?
My childhood was a lot of contrasts and a lot of different things together, right? Uh, on one hand, my grandfather was a high court judge, but we didn't stay with them, right? So they had everything. Large palatial, etc. And we stayed in Mumbai in a very small space and the search of independence, etc. Dad used to be unemployed for the longest time because his vocation, what he had chosen, um, it was with textile mills, and textile mills were not really doing well in Mumbai at that point of time. So he faced a lot of rejections. He faced a lot of challenges at work, and even as 4 5 year old, you know, I remember that there was a very clear sense of that, and there was very clear ownership of that I had. Obviously my sister is older, so she would have had more of that. And we we looked at them work very hard, so we didn't have any qualms about talking about it, right? Because they were doing their best, no matter what they were doing, and whatever was around. So if people looked at it as not enough and spoke to us in certain manner, etc., that he live in small homes, you don't pay fees on time, you do this, you do that, etc. For me, it was still shrug shoulder. It was very like, this is the way it is, and there is precious little that we can do immediately to change in this moment, right? So that's what was my go-to conversation at that moment, and I think I've championed that vulnerability piece um, ever since. Because if you don't let it damage you or break you in a certain manner, it's alive and it is still, with you, rather than
Mm,
working on you as pressures and working on you as 10,000 other things. So
mm,
yeah.
mm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And, I think that's what it is. In case we don't embrace who we are, where we come from, it will continue to show up in our minds and will continue to feed us a story that's not going to be beneficial for us. That's not going to give us the peace and the harmony that we all, deep down, I think we all deserve. So, very early when you're talking about that, you embrace that vulnerability and, as you mentioned, shrug it off. That's how it is.
Yeah.
What do you think? How does it still continue to show up in your life today as well? That's one question. Another question that's coming to me is what are the different ways that you started dealing with those kind of episodes in your life?
I have vocabulary for now. I didn't have vocabulary for back then, right? Right now, you have tools and ways to identify and work around these things and what they call microaggressions and bunch of things like that. And early on, nobody is equipped, and if you are not from a privileged background, the access to these things is even lesser, because these are insights. Um, these are things that are given after a lot of journey, right? So anybody on periphery does not have it. So currently, that same vulnerability, I use the awareness of it for myself and for few communities that I work with, right? Um, so socially, it's made me in social justice and communicating about these things that people try to brush under the carpet, or look the other way, try very hard to repress, etc. I'm like, rather than repressing, just say that I'm not ready to talk about it right now. And that does it, right? Like, you don't need to run away avoiding and do 10,000 weird things rather than saying that, hey, it is too much for me. It's true, it might be too much for you to tackle and to speak about in moments, and that's absolutely all right for somebody not to be ready to have intense conversations, right?
mm, mm,
But
mm,
truths of life are intense, so um, having both, having the truth and capacities in
mm,
mind, that is a daily job. It's a 10-second choice that we have. Like cognitively, everybody can make a choice in 10 seconds, right? Like
mm,
then next, and then next, and then next. That's how the sequencing works.
mm, mm,
So for each choice, each thing, 10 seconds at a time, weighing it and moving ahead is something that I know now, thanks to few tools of access consciousness and few other
mm,
things that I eventually chanced upon, and they've been brilliant and they've helped me work
mm,
on a lot of stuff. So yeah, so right now these things are there. It's pretty much alive. It's pretty much sitting in the room, in every conversation, and everything. They don't
mm,
go away or dissipate. They just stop controlling you.
mm, mm.
You rather know that this is the space that I'll hold for this, and this is the space
Yeah,
that I'll hold for this.
yeah, yeah. Praful, thank you for bringing that. Just curious, when did you realize that the way you show up, the way you perceive things, the way you respond to a situation, the way you enact in a particular situation, be it your school, be it your college, be it your working journey, when did you realize that your approach is a little different from majority of the people around you? And how did you find comfort for yourself? Today the world is talking about ADHD, the world is talking about gender issues, the world is talking about bipolarity, the world is talking about neurodivergence, the world is talking about so many things. I'm not sure if those words were available back then as well. So when did you realize that?
So the vocabulary might develop, and it will keep on developing till we have a working mind, speech, bunch of things, and learning will keep happening, right? You'll know the nuance of it. You'll know new findings in a thing. You'll know what's a different way of looking at multiple things always. But awareness is intrinsic. That feeling inside is something that, and from very early on, I think at the age of 3, I would have made people run around when they ask me my name, and my name at that point of time was very precious to me, saying that some part of my identity is given away if I give my name. So there would be 6 feet tall people asking me my name, and I would be up till their knees, but I'll say that, hey, give me a reason. What will you get if I tell you my name? And if I like your reason, I'll tell you. If I don't like your reason, you can try again. And it was simple, playful agency and negotiating, right? Like, so being aware of the difference, I don't know when I did get aware of it, but I was using it already at 3, for sure. I was using it way back then. That hey, there's a different way of doing things, and I enjoy it, and that's my way of doing things. And there were no other labels except for mine. You know, this is me, or this is what resonates with me. So if putting on music and painting for hours and not going to a certain thing that everybody else is craving for or going ballistic about and driving the whole space upside down about, if I don't have to do it, I don't have to do it. I don't feel a big deal about it. Uh, it's not about swimming against the tide. A lot of people
Mm,
think that most people who have ADHD or autism or any of the things on the spectrum
mm,
uh, go out of their way to prove that they are different or to acknowledge their differences, etc. No, it's just wired differently. So it operates accordingly. So there is a different space for you to um, just engage yourself. So if 5 people are playing cricket and I'm drawing or I'm reading or I'm dancing or I'm just sitting and walking, I'm not missing cricket. I'm definitely not missing cricket because I'm doing my thing at that moment. even if it is just watching water, flow. So,
And
so yeah.
yeah, how was it for your parents? I come across friends several times. I come across my relatives who are dealing with the same situation in their families.
Yeah.
And they sound a little depressed, concerned. How did your parents deal with that? And if you were to share a piece of advice to all those parents who are dealing with something similar, what advice would that be?
Advice, I don't know. A, because I can look after plants, I can't look after humans. That's where I have drawn the line. Plants I can keep alive with my, limited efforts. With humans, it takes much more. So for parents, definitely they were traumatized with their own experiences. My father is one of a twin um, that like his twin sister was early on affected um, with uh, a mental growth issue, and that's when her brain nerve was at a chicken pox. It swelled up and all of that very early in life. He was trauma informed. The family was pretty distraught about her to notice us because there was already so much on their platter, right? So for them to see a bunch of different challenges, it was more about migration from a smaller city to bigger city. It was all about sustaining a certain kind of lifestyle that we would, no matter what kind of kid, requires a certain support, right? So for them, those were the more pressing conversations than the difference. Because no matter how different, a child has to be given what a child has to be given. That was their piece, right? So differences didn't have most of the time. They were like, hey, as long as in these rhythms and patterns, there is whatever that can be delivered on grades, whatever that can be delivered on things. Is he finding his way around things? Is he not getting lost? Is he responsible enough? Is he, eating food on time, eating enough? Like those basic things were being met in some way or the
Yeah,
other, right? So
yeah, yeah.
they were fine with that. They were more grateful that hey, we can provide this much, that is being taken, that's being taken well, it's shaping, okay. They were more concerned about my height than my brains, right? Like,
And those are the parameters based on which the society values you. The height, what's the color of your
yeah,
skin, and yeah,
yeah,
I
all
can
of those
relate to what you're talking about. Yeah,
all
how
of
well
those
a
things,
person
that he's
speaks.
dewormed every year, just like I will look for my puppy. They were looking at me as like, hey, is your system enough? Do you have parasites? What are the GP saying? So they were more concerned about that than all of this, because also they did not have that much privilege to understand um, neurodiversity from a very, what to say, ad- advanced perspective, right? Like
Mm.
uh, for my aunt, there were so many experiments for 70 years of her life with her mental health piece that I see her only as an experimental piece for most of the family to fix that they try to do approach. And these are all educated people who are principals, who are engineers, who have been serving in ministries at times, etc. These are empowered, educated people who have made mark for themselves in their lives, right? Like we are here, they were still in a certain community space, so they were supporting each other and doing those things right there. Um, they had the success parameters, but how to successfully deal with somebody, it is almost like out of syllabus question. This was out of syllabus person for them
Mm.
within that home, and they just didn't know what to do or do with
Yeah.
her. They just didn't.
I could gauge that when you use the word they wanted to fix her.
Yeah,
The word fix itself is too loud for me to process. Tell me more about that.
because medically, a lot of people think sexuality can be fixed. A lot of people think gender can be fixed. A lot of people think they're fixing, because fixing has a notion of something being wrong, not something being different. So understanding how to work with it, right? Like you're starting with a judgment of wrongness, and wrongness not contributing to life, right? Or contributing to growth, or contributing to benefits in whatever sense of the word, which is not the case. Everybody is right and wrong at multiple things in multiple viewpoints, and it contributes to overall scheme of things. Unless you're wrong, you can't be right. Unless you're right, you can't be wrong. So when people look at inhaling and exhaling individually, that won't be life, right? Similarly, the perspective was pretty limited, maybe because they were making life for themselves, they were getting successful in material sense of the world, they were busy, creating life for their children or whatever. But for her, it was difficult. For us, because we had a bit of space between them and us, um, majority of effort of majority of my childhood effort went in saying that, hey, you're judging my parents for XYZ things and excluding, and my parents saying that you're judging our children and excluding for XYZ reason. So our conversation was largely about judgment, even earlier. And it's funny that my grandfather was a High Court judge. So we joke that it's in family, it's in blood to, analyze a
Judge
person in a
others.
certain manner and judge others. And we joke.
Yeah.
So, and we also say that it needs undoing, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't be doing that. He did it out of vocation. What are you doing it out of?
Praful, help me understand.
Yeah.
On one hand, we have this medically proven mental illness challenges.
Hmm.
On one hand, there are situations which are proved by medical theories. At the same time, I think society has played a very vital role in creating stress in the lives of the people who are different. What do you think the world that you lived in has contributed a percentage of what you went through or what you are going through, if it has?
Okay, so I really think the benchmarking is weird, because what we consider mainstream is barely 3 to 5% of human population, and by excluding 95% of people, 90, like that's that's how people function, because they want to fit into this very narrow stereotype, and they want to call that success or that beauty or that fitness or that whatever. So those benchmarking that have been done in whatever manner, an architect saying only if you live in a 10 bhk with X kind of sustainability, with black kind of energy maintenance and blah blah blah, that your house is a home, is their way of looking at it. For me, home is where we can create that space, right, and have that comfort, and can run it and be safe. So that bit, the humane bit, is what the society constantly tries to put aside for everybody, not only for me or anybody who's perceived different. It is the humanity that everybody denies at workplaces, in classrooms, in playing fields, in public spaces. The sheer room to be human, to err, to change, to laugh at your own faults, etc. That is something that was really taken up as threat for by a lot
Mm,
of people. So if I'm learning in my own way, if I'm showing up in my own way, it says nothing about them, really, right?
mm,
But to take it personally, to block it, to delay it, to change it, um, all of those
mm,
attempts have been everyday conversations, right?
mm,
And they continue at various levels. Like my at workplace, two colleagues will do it, or two interns will do it, or two reporting bosses will do it, some client will do it, some like everything. People would like to do it in a certain manner, and I'm like, fine, as long
mm,
as we can both enjoy it, great. If it's only you and not me, then there's a compromise. So let's figure how's it going. So each conversation is that. Each
mm,
conversation is a negotiation.
mm,
It is that.
mm. I just love it the way. you have developed this capacity to reframe everything in your life. And I remember one of our conversations, you mentioned that you have got an immense amount of opportunities in your life. And from that conversation to this conversation, Praful, I'm not been able to wrap my head around that how someone who has dealt with life with so many of things that the world has forbidden can look at the world with so much of hope, with so much of keenness, with so much of openness. Tell me more about that when you say that you've got so many opportunities in your life.
Okay, so the more I try to fit in, the more I try to mask, the worse I am at it. Because you end up looking awkward and funny, and you end up looking force fit, and it's very visible. To me, it is very visible if I am being nervous is not being awkward. There's a difference. I can be a bit anxious, I can be a bit angsty, I can be a bit restless, I can be
We all could
one.
be.
Yeah, yeah. So I can be that more often than most people because of the attention deficit piece. So frequency will be more like most people if they have 1 hour of day where they are a bit more restless. I might have 3, 4. Where they might require 20 minutes of grounding, I might require 2 hours. So those requirements, those comfortable, those patterns, those things will be there that I might only like to sip from a certain kind of cup and certain kind of thing on certain day. And so those patterns are difficult to undo for me. And just acknowledging that they are difficult, so you'll do it partially, or you're not going to be judgmental if you're not able to totally do it. That kindness with self has paved the way for everything, right? It's okay to fail.
Mm.
It's okay to be bad at something.
Mm.
It's okay to be a hot mess, right? Like it is. End of the day, it is, right? It unless you're hurting and harming people, and unless it's physically threatening, or it is criminal, or it is really intense. Failures are a good thing. They are. And fall 7 times, get up 8 is not a mantra. It is just a way of being.
Mm.
It just is because how else do you keep uh, doing what you do? Like
Yeah. Oh,
what I do, I can't do it without that at all.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
You
would like
know,
to keep doing it.
yeah. As they say, either you can carry the baggage of your life and continue to walk with that heavy load, or
Yeah,
continue to let go of that, unload yourself, and then move on and look at the life the way you would like to look at your life.
yeah.
Praful, your life did not stop there. As I mentioned, that everything the world has forbidden, I think either you love finding yourself in that space, which I have my own reservations. Incidentally, you have been placed in those situations, and I'm sure there's a reason for that. And as we grow in our life, we'll get to know that. All the things that people find taboo, the society talks about behind the doors, you've been surrounded with that, be it ADHD, or if I can take just one step forward, when did you realize about your preferences, and how was the journey for you in a society where being a gay person is still considered as a taboo?
So this was at least 20, 22 years back, a bit more like that. So it is half my life back. So, uh, Indian sensibilities are funny because uh, ancient texts say a very different thing. If you see the social structures, the way that they are designed, and how intimacy works, um, they say a very different thing. And what supposedly the gatekeepers and in charges of the society, and those uh, religious texts and religious rituals, etc., say is different, because peace, love, kindness is very natural for anybody.
It is
And
paramount. That's humanity.
yeah, no gender sexuality conversation says that go beyond peace, love, kindness. It doesn't. It's not about that. It's perceived to be about that. So, so it's a game of truth and perceptions. If it's a game of truth and perceptions, I realized it at about, I went through a phase of understanding, finding myself, and blah 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 from 17 to about 20, and where I would have sat on the fence, figured out, thought my sexuality is fluid, blah blah blah, had my questions about it. And on 20, when I would have figured out that no, this is how it is. In today's day and age, I'll be called late bloomer because it happens during puberty to most people. But that time back then, avenues were very different. Information pieces were very different. And how we had access to these conversations was very different. So for me to find one book that is not sensationalizing or presenting relationship between two men in a non total erotic, total lusty, sexual, blah blah blah, or totally hushed, mm, you know, read between the lines way kind of thing. It was very rare for me to find something that is still like any other slice of life conversation. Like when you come back home and say, what did you have for lunch? What do you like to have for dinner? Or is it made? Or will you eat after a shower? Will you eat before a shower? Something had come. Would you like to, should I put on the music? Should I do this? Those are the conversations a person has. You don't have anything which is drastically different. There is no rainbow flags being, you know, uh, uh, pumped in people's faces if they're together in a room. End of the day, and which is a very boring way of looking at it, but that's the truth. So that's the lived reality of that piece is, right. So being queer, still you're thinking of adoption, if you'll be allowed legally or no. You're still thinking about if you can just foster somebody and give meaning to your own life, if you can mentor, if you can do 10 things. You're still thinking those very basic human things, your food, your clothing, your, friends and warmth and family and basic things. You don't sprout wings or horns or any of those things. So for people to assume that, it pained for a long time. When I got rid of a bunch of judgments on myself and gender roles, because a lot of that comes from parents and a lot of that comes from programming, that's when I could just laugh at it. And I've been laughing at it for at least a decade plus now. Earlier, it was just that, no, I'll have a conversation about it. So it started with, I'll have a conversation about it. I won't stay shut about it. Went on to understanding what it means to me and what it means to the world. And when I saw what it means to me and what it means to the world are so different, I could just end up laughing. Until date, I'm laughing at it, saying that, hey, listen, it's ridiculous how these notions are taken from one conversation to another, how people find reasons to hate and invent such weird reasons to hate and to kill and to do things. I'm like, do you get sleep doing that? Are you fine with yourself doing that? Are you like, do you even realize what part of you it's catering to, hating on others and belittling others and invalidating others
And the kind
and
of
just
damage that it's
othering
causing
people?
to the society.
Yeah, overall, like,
Yeah.
because it's not one, no, because if you're talking about gender sexuality, if you're thinking that women are less than you, transgender folks are XYZ, LGBT people are blah, people with disability are X, people from X kind of country and skin color are blah, people who stay in remote areas are like this, people who eat a certain food are like this. Where that judgment thing will never stop. It's a dominoes
Yeah.
effect. You lose out on
Yeah.
that whole 95% of that life or 98% of that life, and you've been
The
given
judgment
100.
others.
Yeah. And you're using 2% of that battery constantly and not having that 100% experience. Who limited you? You.
And as you said, so-called gatekeepers, so-called inspectors. And as I was just listening to you, I could actually identify the different parameters based on which I tend to judge others. And today, when I come across somebody with a different preference, I am as human as he is, not he's as human as I am. Can you see the reversal here? I am as
Yeah,
human as
I can.
he is, right?
I can.
So the reference point is not I, the reference point is him, the reference point is her. And I think that has
Hmm.
shifted, and that took me a lot of time by identifying what are the different layers through which I'm evaluating, judging people, and who am I to judge them? And as you mentioned, if I continue to judge others based on the color of the skin, what they eat, and the preference that they have, and the nationality that they have, or the religion that they follow, or the God that they follow or they don't follow, I would be left with only 2% of, as you mentioned, the battery life.
It can be even lesser. Huh? People judge each other by the books, by the music, by shoes, by makeup, by eye color. By
Mm.
it's never ending. If you want to judge, you can keep
Mm.
on judging, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just that.
Praful, you have a beautiful life in the space of social entrepreneurship as well. Tell me about that. How did you bump into that space?
So, in corporate language, it's called succession planning, right? Like where you see the next level of leadership emerge, you say that you'll move out of places. So in Mumbai Pride, in 12 years, we've been able to take it from 800 people attendance to about 20,000 people attendance, and the largest in India, most controversial also at times. But it just, um, there's a lot that has been done and a lot that will be done in that space. But what's not constant is the voices that are at the helm of it. I've had the fortune of supporting the biggest names, being in the same room with Stephen Fry, Elliot Page, uh, with a lot of people who came to support the Pride events and Pride conversations and did a lot of beautiful work, right? And regularly, the person will not find it. Vikram Seth has left a party. Um, it's screaming my name because we spoke about the gender sexuality piece, and that was when 377 piece like bit was on its heights, and I was handling a book awards function, and I was one of the juniors. I was not even anybody senior. I went and instead of speaking about the book that they won award for, I said that hey, book is great, but the letter that you wrote about 377 is greater because it speaks about your personal truths. And bam, you know, we can say it didn't have an email ID at that point of time, 2008, I guess, 2007, 2008 time. Okay. And it used to go to the agent, and agent used to find the way of putting it across. But just that one humane conversation, it broke a lot of barriers. So I've seen that happen. So when newer people came in by fifth, sixth year of Pride, we said W Pride is not enough. We have to look at more stuff and financial inclusion, jobs, livelihood pieces, networking for business, mentorship, buddy systems. A lot of skilling, upskilling, learning had to happen. So in 2017, we formed something called 6 Degrees. Um, I'm the founder. I have two other people who identify as queer, one gender fluid person in them. And we three formed this company. Mm, We did a job fair in 2019 without limiting it to rainbow exclusive inclusion of rainbow washing or trans flag colors everywhere, and just doing that much so that we cash in on the check piece. No rainbow capitalism happening there. But 25% of people who attended that job fair were people with disability. I had no idea that the job seeker population and the kind of intensity with people with disability look for jobs. I had no idea till then. My own mental health conversation was on, but I didn't really identify myself as somebody with invisible disability. So, 2019, that changed with Vivid. It's India's one of first diversity job fairs, and we're fortunate we were supported by a lot of firms that believed in our work from the social side and from the marketing side that I could bring on because I've been part of Times of India and Miscraft and also. You know a certain uh, kind of work language and production, right? So they gave us opportunities. We've been doing that. We have a recruitment training and tech consultancy. We work with a lot of organizations to create programs, to create collaboration opportunities or just papers or whatever. Come to a networking meeting, sit with people, have a dialogue with anybody who's different from you and figure out how differences are not all there is to that piece. So be it across the interview desk, be it across, just a cup of coffee in a speed networking event, be it in, any kind of these environments that we create offline, online, engage with as many different people as you can, all kind of different people. And we study it, a bit of geek there. We've been fortunate to, be trained by great places, part of UNDP program. Thomson Reuters gave me opportunity to do a fellowship mentorship. Right now we're doing something in impact measurement where we've been selected, where faculties from Harvard Business School and University of Chicago Booth will train. And so a lot of social entrepreneurship stuff happens.
And you never stop there. Interestingly, Praful, from being on the front pages of magazines and newspapers, you have experienced that. At the same time, people call that you might have attention deficit.
Yeah.
You have ADHD. You belong to so-and-so category. Just curious, how has being ADHD helped, assisted, or impacted you in your journey, so-called entrepreneurial journey?
So, okay. Because there's an attention deficit, I can't do with all of these labels, right? I can't keep on looking at people as only gay, only women, only dark, only light skinned, only South Indian, only North Indian. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. I'll look at a person as a person. In that moment, the interaction is interaction, right? I don't naturally have capacity, neither have I developed that muscle. I've not cared for it. I would rather have dignity, respect, and basic equity in a conversation, that nobody's stepping on anybody's toes and it is fair and it is fine. It is okay. You might be CEO. Am I being proper to you? Are you proper to me? That's what my general perspective is, right? So I remember for a large format, 12,000 people event, this MD of a large Indian bank, they are number one in microfinance in India. So it was 25th year of their organization. I was handling a certain piece, stage piece, and I had done earlier certain amount of content, etc. for them. A brilliant gentleman. He's had an amazing career. He's done a lot for a lot of people. Yet they know where to expect, where not to expect. So there was a 70 people console right across, and I was handling this backstage where things were falling left, right, and center technically, as much as I can say. We were by thresholds just running the show. So host knows that he's handling 12,000 people. I'm supplying everything on the fly to them on written cue cards, and things are changing by the minute. Okay. And without computer, without technical pieces, we're just saving our face somehow, supposedly, that we know. Larger audience does not know. Even the 14 directors and people who are expecting certain, they don't know technically. There was a 10-second drop in sound, and MD was about to speak at that point. 10-second drop in sound. He looked at me right here to fix it. And I'm like, 70 people console right there. 70 people. And your people. And they have taken every aspect. Your Copcom head is there. Everybody's crowded to make this the biggest event of this bank nationally. And you've not looked at them. I met you 1.5 times in life. And you've just seen me run the show for the way that I have done. And you've turned to me. Because in that moment, I'm hyper-focused as well as, because I'm using my hyper-focus to deliver. and I'm using all the attention deficit to go from one task to another, right? That
Mm.
navigation, and that navigations come after a while, after like being with myself for what, 20 years actively working, and that would be that moment that I could deliver that. But
Mm.
uh but he knows and I know that I shot right back at him and said that, please look ahead. Your people will handle that. I have other things to do. 10-second drop will be fixed. It's come back now. So by the time that he looked, I said that, can you hear it now? He's like, yes, I can hear. Let's look. Next time, ask there. It was very clear and it was human to human. It was very basic. It is not something that is, major. And the person who was handling it, he has a radio show, he has a television show, he's a good celebrity, the master of
Mm.
ceremony who was there. He sent cake next day to office saying that,
Mm.
hey, because of you, we didn't fall on face, this, that, and
Mm.
blah. And
Mm.
and those are those relationships for me. I don't want to know whether this host is being paid 3 lakhs today, tomorrow they'll be paid 5.5 lakh for doing the same job.
Mm.
Whether this one is retiring with X kind of ESOPs, I don't care.
Mm.
You might be rich, you might be poor, you might be blah blah blah. If you're a good person, I know how much
Mm.
space to hold for you, how far to go, and I will.
Mm.
And that's what ADHD has done to me. And most of the things that others can't pick up, or they get scared, or they get weirded by and overwhelmed
Mm.
by, I run into it, do it. Then they see the game changing. Then they're like, oh, this was the trick, this was the thing. Oh, we just had to be this simple, this basic, this human to do this. ये तो मैं कर सकता था. Then people pick that piece up and then they run with it, and which I'm glad to
Mm.
share, saying that, hey, you can do it.
What a beautiful share, Praful. As I'm just reflecting and while I was just listening to you, I was talking to myself and I was wondering the tendency that I have to judge my own self without realizing that the downtime that I've been blessed with could be the game changer for me. The challenge is that I always tend to compare myself with others and saying that, hey, this is what he or she has and I don't have, rather than looking at what I have. Do I have the necessary awareness? Do I really cherish my so-called strengths and so-called other strengths, not weaknesses? I think if I can actually look that, I'll be able to create peace for myself. Praful, help
And
me understand. What do you think are the primary expectations an ADHD person would have of others, or and a gay person would have of others? The society that we are a part of. What's your take on that?
to look at a complete person, don't look at one aspect of them, because any of these identities are one layer of our personality, right? Like,
And cannot superpower us.
that
That
is not
cannot
entirety of
overpower
me.
us.
That is not the person. That is not Praful. That's not Praful at 42 in this room speaking to somebody with a certain thing. It can never contain me. That's a word. And interpretation of that word is in your head, and it is individual. And that is not me. And that will never be me. And that will never be any person. That So there is no such thing as an ADHD person. There is no such thing as a queer person. There is a person who is queer. There's a person who has ADHD. There's a
Yeah.
person who has blah blah blah. And there are gazillion ways of being a person. So
Hmm. I think coming back to
so
the
yeah,
identity that
yeah,
we keep one identity over another and then start to
yeah,
evaluate others by so-called what we call as the gatekeepers or the inspectors. So the question that I
yeah.
have for myself and all the listeners is, what are those parameters based on which you tend to judge, evaluate others? What is that identity that you have kept at the top of the stack? And what are those identity that you have kept at the lower part of the stack? And what if tomorrow everything shuffles and reshuffles and reshuffles? Tomorrow, if humanity is the currency that's going to be most prevalent in the world, how rich or poor would you be? What's your take on this, Praful?
Empathy is what has driven people out of pandemic, right? Like, whoever's doing well after pandemic is somebody who has a certain amount of empathy embedded or has developed that muscle, right? Isolation has given people a lot of time to, just reassess, recalibrate, just look at life, because we've lost a lot of people, and a lot of people have been isolated during that time when they lost others. And they lost people in the manner that most people would like to forget. But I say use that empathy and that knowing and that not helplessness, but
Mm,
knowing how vulnerable we have been
mm,
to support others. So
mm,
once this whole piece of being humane is where you acknowledge certain
mm,
bits
mm.
and go beyond the label of CXO, of trainers, coaches, of
Yeah.
designers, of marketers, of XYZ. There's always a human behind that label,
And there's a
behind that.
life beyond that
Yeah,
badge as well.
it is.
There is a life beyond that
Yeah.
badge.
So before being absolutely negotiating till say that I don't care if you sell your home, I want delivered things like this. This is your penalty clause. As a lawyer, I'm putting this where everything will be mine and nothing will be yours. And before you
Mm,
do that, as a you know anybody, as a corporate, as anybody, before that practice comes in, and
mm,
before you put it on paper, remember you are humane. It can come to you in very different manner than that. And I'm not saying karma, and I'm not doing this whole fear mongering weirdness, but I'm
mm.
saying it's possible. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
possible. It's
yeah.
possible for each of us. So just remember that.
Thank you, Praful. Praful, today is 1st of December,
Yeah.
and we have World's AIDS Day. Where does that fit in the scheme of thoughts that we have been talking about? We have been talking about gender, we are talking about gender, sex, we are talking about ADHD, we are talking about the whole taboo of an individual's preferences, LGBTQ. Where does that fit in? And what's your take on that?
So funnily, I'll tell you one simple bit. World AIDS Day is the first major concert that I had attended and also been part of producing. MTV used to do a long 20, 30 artist, large format show where I was studying, and everybody wanted to be a part of it because you don't get to see such a great lineup of artists. And there used to be stalls then talking about, safe sex practices, etc., which nobody would 20 years back do, right? So that was my first exposure to it. I went on to work in the same company in 2013, 2014 as DGM. Yesterday, day before, I have been part of a large format music festival. We were talking about mental health and we were running a safe space tent, right? Life comes full circle. World AIDS Day is a constant reminder for me of that. There are a lot of friends who are positive and who live without any whatsoever trouble in having a healthy life, a healthy job, a healthy relationship, healthy everything. HIV is not AIDS, AIDS is not HIV. HIV is an infection that can lead to AIDS. AIDS is life threatening, but a person with AIDS is not life threatening.
Mm,
Person with
mm,
HIV is not life threatening.
mm,
Person who's got diabetes and person who's got a lung condition, a person who's got HIV are no different.
mm,
A person who can take a pill and get into U is equal to U space, which is undetectable, is equal to untransmissible.
mm,
It's same as having a healthy blood sugar level so that you don't have to
mm,
poke and check your blood every day.
mm,
The amount of syringes that go for a diabetic and for HIV are same, but the judgment varies. Most of us try to look at it because of our shame of sex and not having comfort with gender, sex, sexuality, and our own body, on our own organs, and our own cells.
mm,
So if we are so ashamed of ourselves that we are projecting it on others, and we would like and we will be very happy if others are ashamed of
mm,
not being careful about their lives.
mm,
They're not
mm,
careful
mm,
of their
mm,
own lives. They are at the most risk. If they are, what are you trying to prove to them?
mm,
If they are, along with the condition, living beautifully, happily, and being a good person, what are you trying to snatch away from them? So World AIDS Day is a beautiful, beautiful reminder of the fact that people can live with HIV. There are a lot of people who realize it and need support in a very different capacity. Maternal health programs are the spaces where HIV test is mandatory and where most of the women who are most vulnerable, not gender intersection comes here, right? Most of the women from vulnerable backgrounds, if they have not given therapy correctly or that counseling correctly at that moment and their HIV results are announced to them, what it means for their partner, what it means for their partner's partner or partners of whatever genders there are. That's a big moment, and it's thrust upon pregnant women with whatever kind of agency of their own body, whatever kind of agency of their own life, whatever kind of socioeconomic condition, just thrust upon them because HIV test is mandatory for pregnancy.
Yeah. Thank you. And I just love it when you ask this question, what are you trying to snatch away from them? And I would add one more question here. Forget about what you're trying to snatch away from them. Another question to ponder on is, what does that tell you about yourself and the way you look at other human beings just because you are privileged? And also, I know of not every HIV positive is because of any act that the person was involved or not involved in. It could be because of any ABC reason.
Absolutely. It could be
Absolutely.
going to a barber who used the same blade as, I'm not fear mongering again, but these are the conditions that I know somebody who got a tattoo with a unsanitized needle, and they're not indulging in unsafe practices, but it happened.
Thank you. Thank you, Praful, for sharing your vulnerability, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experiences, sharing several chapters of your life. And as you have always told you, I've always found you extremely kind. Thank you so much, my friend, for being who you are. I'm privileged to have met you, to have spoken to you, to have exchanged notes on several conversations that we've had. And all those conversations had helped me to become a better human being and to look and relook at the judgment through which I am doing this sin of judging others. So, shukran, stay blessed, and take care of yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you.